Hello everyone, great to see you again. Um, so I haven't updated the videos for a few weeks because it's actually quite busy during the work, and finally I find some time to continue. Um, so I think what we have been talking through until now is we kind of cover how the billing process works. As a part of billing, very important part is the usage calculation, and I think I had some questions from the WhatsApp chat group about how usage actually works because it is one of the process going across two systems, although within C2M now it's one system. Um, so I would like to go through usage process today. Okay, so we break it down to overview, and then we'll talk about usage request, which normally the usage calculation is triggered from CCMB via usage request. We'll look at the business object, end of the life cycle, and in that part we will involve what is happening in MDM. And at last, we look at entity relationship. Okay, first one, overview. Right, so I think before we talk about usage, again, I'd like to look back at the object relationship, the V model, within two systems. So on the left is CCMB, and on the right you can see there is this is MDM. Okay, um, I've kind of color coded, and based on the color you can see which objects map to what. Now we are talking about a usage request, which normally is created as a part of the bill calculation. So remember, bill is a collection of bill segments, and each of the bill segments is calculated based on the service agreement. We create a usage request normally because of the service agreement requires bill determinants based on consumption, and that consumption is coming from the meter reads, which is based on a list of objects on the right, device config, device meshing components, all the meter reads sits on meshing components, and that's where we need to send the usage request from CCMB, um, and MDM would calculate it based on the meter, either half hourly consumption or non-half hourly, which is scalar reads, and then send it back to CCMB for rate calculation. Then, based on the consumption times the price, in a very simple term, we get the bill. Okay, so over here I have tried to put down a very simple life cycle of what is happening during a usage calculation. Okay, so from very beginning, the trigger could either be the billing batch job, which I think many of you probably already know. It is the nightly batch we run to calculate to generate bills based on the bill cycle, or we can generate a bill manually from the screen. So any kind of ad hoc bills or correction bills. Um, when this trigger is happening, first of all, it creates a bill segment in arrow, in awaiting bill determinant status. usage request is calculated, which then triggers the on the MDM side, it creates an object called usage transaction. Usage transaction actually have is linked to the usage subscription object in MDM, which is equivalent to the service agreement. We've seen that on the last slide. Now, based on the rate in which we define normally on the service agreement, we will know what is the usage rule to be applied in the usage subscription. So usage calculation kicked off at this point. In the happy path, usage transaction complete, usage request complete, bill segment forgotten, bill completed. In the negative case, usage transaction goes into error, usage request goes into error, and bill segment goes into error. A few points to highlight is we need to look at, especially pay attention to two algorithms which is defined on bill segment type. Now one of them is the get consumption algorithm, and another one is the calculate consumption algorithm. Calculate bill determinant. Calculate bill segment algorithm. So these two algorithms is triggered in the life cycle. We will go into more details to look at both. And if you need to customize, you need to understand where they happen, what they do, and how you can customize that. Over here, I would say service type has a special role flag of bill determinant required. Yeah, there is a flag normally indicates that it needs to create a usage request and send to MDM. The SA type reference the bill segment type with special get consumption and bill segment consumption algorithm. Yeah, so both these algorithms we will talk about that in details in the later slides. Get bill segment use a usage request algorithm checks if pending usage exists for bill segment. If necessary, creates a new usage request that get bill determines from MDM. Okay, second part, usage request. Right, so as we said, we have this this get consumption algorithm. So this algorithm is created when the usage request is created in pending. Okay, and what it does is it creates a usage request. It's populated the schema, which means it creates this object. If you want to add special request in terms of there are certain scenarios, I think, if you want to change the structure of usage request, then you need to customize this particular algorithm. And remember that one is on the bill segment type. Now on the left, there is this is a sample schema of what usage request looks like. That is going to be sent over to MDM, so MDM understands what needs to be done. Within the usage request, both interval and the scalar processing parameters are sent to MDM since CCMB is not aware of which meter type is available. Again, on the very first slides, what we see is CCMB only knows I need to calculate consumption based on service point, but service point is not differentiating between half hourly and half hourly, and actually throughout the time for the same service point, it could be initially say a dump meter and then migrated to a smart meter. So we could have different type of consumptions recorded throughout the time, and MDM will be aware of that because MDM is master of the device, but CCMB doesn't actually know. And the second thing is about date break. Now, date break is very often the place where we have to customize this algorithm because it's down to what is the requirement of date break and what is the calculation actually um, for the date break. So for example, if you want to do a date break for every text return, text, so let's say the text rate change. So let's say if you look at a particular, let's say we create a usage. Um, um, let's say that the text break happens on the 1st of April. Okay, and to be simple, it's just a fixed date, and the bill actually covers March, April, and May, so it's a quarterly bill. And in that case, we actually need to know what is the consumption before 1st of April and what is the consumption after 1st of April, because if we don't know, we don't know how to apply the how to apply the rates proportionally. Okay. So in these cases, if there is a say a proportion, well, there is a say a price change or there is a rate change, tax change, whatever. If that consumption need to be break down, we will need to insert a date break in this case, and that date break comes from CCMB. CCMB determines what is the date break, and then send it to MDM. MDM could also add some, not say add date breaks, but also it could have cases where the consumption will be broken down because let's say even CCMB doesn't request for a date break, but the MDM has meter exchange during this period. So you would actually have two consumptions coming back, and that is, I mean, if let's say they're different devices, they're different consumptions, so you will have two lines of consumption coming back for the whole period. Now the rate calculation might not be different for these two consumptions. They might just add them together, but on the technical side, what comes back is also date breaked. So yeah, just need to be aware of these cases and just need to be aware of why we need a date break, and that's very often the reason for customize this get consumption algorithm. Over here, we look at a bit more details into the usage request element. So we talk about their scalar and interval processing details. So on the scalar, let's say the start date is either the service agreement start date if it's the initial bill, or it is the end date of the previous bill segment. Okay, so uh, if it's the second bill or the bill after, it's just follow what is the end date of the last bill, which is determined by the end dates of the last build segment. So when you look at the technical side of the build segment, you always see what is the previous segment. It will always try to find the previous segment when you create when the system was creating a segment. So that is where it determines what's the start date coming from. And then there's a couple of things like billing option dependent on what path to billing. Either use cutoff date or use schedule. Use cutoff date is normally say, okay, I want to bill until, say I want to bill until 31st of March. Okay, that's the end of the month. It will just basically bill until that date. But if you say I want to use schedule, that potentially could be looking at, this is asking MDM to say, look at the schedule. If there is any reads in between, and maybe there's 3-day window in between, then give me the accurate rate if I have an accurate rate. It is also down to how you actually configure the usage rule, because the usage rule actually takes care of what read to choose, what is the most proper read to use for the bill. How do I, do I allow estimate reads, etc. like that, and where is the estimate rate? Now the next one is kind of related. So the minimum and maximum offset days are retrieved from SA rate schedules frequency. So this minimum and maximum is actually saying, okay, if I use the cutoff date, well then, what is the day before and after I can set the window for. Normally, that's really depends on the project, but normally we can set, say, 3 days before and after. And also there is a flag, say, does it allow estimate, and if it's estimate, what is the estimate date? Estimate date can be defined, if it's a batch billing, it can be defined on the bill cycle, and if it's manual bill, it's normally just the date for the cutoff date. Okay. Right. So on the right hand side will be interval. Scalar and the interval, I think if you are not aware of these two, I think I can explain a little bit, but I mean, there are more details to go through. But essentially, scalar, when we're talking about scalar, we are talking about meter readings. So what that actually means is on a meter, you actually see there is a number, right? So like a dials. Maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And next month is 1, 2, 3, 5, 5. Then that means 10 kilowatt hour consumption. But the interval, normally what comes back is the consumption itself. So every half hourly we get a consumption of, 2 kilowatt hour, etc. So these are the differences. And for interval, we will need to it's very similar. We will actually send the start date, end date, cutoff date. These are very similar. The interval will work a bit differently. It depends on whether you allow estimate or not. Normally, the project I've been working with, they don't allow estimates, because interval means it is based on the half hourly data, which, if it's not accurate, it doesn't make sense to estimate a half hourly read. It's coming from, we're talking about some, if it's half hourly rate, it's either a AMR or it's a smart meter. So these meters should be accurate. So normally shouldn't be estimated, but there are cases where we have to estimate, etc. But that's normally done in a very different way because uh, we don't actually tell the customer your your half hourly consumption is also estimated. But anyway, it's just different projects have different logics in terms of how we treat the rates, whether we think um, it is acceptable to tell the customer half hourly rates are estimated. Um, okay, so a bit more details. We look at that life cycle for usage calculation. So during the bill segments that require usage requests are created in error state. These bill segments are generated within the usage request lifecycle once bill determinants are received from MDM. The create bill segment algorithm, which is the second algorithm, actually retrieve the usage list, a period list that contain entry for each usage period that MDM calculates bill determinants for. Okay, so remember we talked about um, the bill periods. If you have um, date break, normally it comes back with separate bill segment, usage periods. Similarly, if MDM has, say, a meter exchange, it come back with two periods as well. Okay, and then what happened afterwards is um, the rate application. So we will be talking about configuring rates because rate is what is the billing rules. So on MDM side, you have usage rules which calculate consumption, but on the CCMB side, you have the rates which calculate the bills. So rate application is called for every entry in the usage period list. The usage period and bill determinants are passed to rate application. A separate bill segment calc header is created for each period in the usage period list. The usage period returned by MDM is also captured on the bill segment. This indicates the periods MDM used to calculate bill determinants. Now, here is one point where we could customize in this create bill segment algorithm. Some of the projects they will probably ignore the meter exchanging. Let's say in that case, if there is a meter exchange in MDM, they don't actually they don't need to tell the customer, there's two lines of consumption because it becomes quite confusing for the customer, but they would aggregate all the consumption in the whole usage, bill determinant, start date and end date periods. So they aggregate these consumption within the algorithm, create a new SQ, and then send to the rate application to calculate the bill. Okay, so over here, just remember the create bill segment algorithm is triggered after MDM sends back the bill determinants. If you want to do something about it, or if you want to say um, um, add some additional characteristics, let's say there are additional characteristic on the bill segments, additional information, you can um, you can customize it, or as I said, like aggregate consumption, etc. Um, So these are how the two algorithm, very important algorithm, running during this life cycle. And next, after any read found on the usage request are stored as calculation audit records in bill segment read collection. So if you look at the bill segment, so on one of the tab you see all the service quantity, all the calculation audit reads, and on the, I think it's just the tab next to it, that's the calculation headers. For all the calculation header, it will be showing there after a rate is applied. After all the usage period entry has been processed by rate application, the system accumulates the bill segment and stores these in the bill segment SQ collection. Yeah. So as I said, you can customize them, you can aggregate them by customizing the bill segment algorithm. But you don't have to, because the base algorithm is performing as what we are saying on these slides. So for both get consumption and create bill segment algorithm, there is a base algorithm which you can use to perform the behavior as we described here. Okay, next is usage request BO. Now for the business object, from MDM side, from CCMB side, we have the C1 usage request parent, which is not instantiable. Then you have the child. I think this is a bit old actually, because from this is probably the old way of usage request before C2M. So for C2M, we have you will see objects start with X1. So there are a lot of objects and algorithms start with X1, which is, I guess it's meaning cross both products. So so you will see the X1 usage request in the system, and many of these are no. I think the BO is probably still C1, but the algorithm will see there X1 replacing the C1 behavior, because before C2M, the usage request actually creates outbound message in GMS and send to MDM. But within the once the two systems merge, X1 algorithm replace it, which basically just creates an MDM object within the system. So that's the difference, but the logic is quite similar. So you have one algorithm, one BO for cyclical billing when the billing batch is running. If it's ad hoc, say menu generated bill, it would just use the non-cyclic billing. And these actually result in different behavior in MDM side, because MDM, if it sees it's a batch mode for bill, so it will actually wait until the batch is running on CCMB on MDM to calculate the consumption. Remember, 99 of the bill are actually going through the billing batch. And it's not just the one batch within billing, it's a list of different batches, MDM and CCMB batches during that process. So the benefit of using batches, you can control the parameters like number of threads, and to make sure the system perform optimally in terms of performance, and also handling the the speed of processing at night time. So this batch actually give a hint to say, okay, wait for the batch, and they will be processed differently. But for non-cyclical, normally it's just when it says online, it doesn't wait, because if someone generates a bill online, there's no batch in between. Everything just goes through real time, and yeah, as someone is generating the bill in CCMB online, and they expect the result to come back immediately as well. So this is the difference over here. Now, this is probably just a summary of what we have discussed in terms of the life cycle of the BO. On the left-hand side, I try to put down the status of the CCMB usage life cycle, but that reflects on what happens on MDM. Although we will be talking a bit more scenarios probably in the future around what actually happens with those MDM usage transaction. There are additional scenarios will be happening. Over here, we just talk about a new bill. When a new bill happens, what is happening? Okay, so starting from pending, a pending request is generated by the get consumption algorithm and is linked to a bill segment. What is in the error status. Second step, if created during batch billing, the usage request will remain in the initial state until the deferred monitor batch runs. For online bills, usage request is transactioned immediately. Number 3, system checks related SASP sync are completed before sending a request. This is quite important because very often, remember the batch, the sync between CCMB and the MDM is also batched initially. After C2M is introduced, I think that becomes real time now. But actually, before if CCMB and MDM is two systems, we need to make sure all the data has been synchronized, because a lot of the usage calculation, bill determinants calculation is based on the service point characteristic, or say service agreement characteristics, so they need to be synchronized first. And number 4, when no pending usage request, system moves to sender request status, and enter algorithm is triggered to send a request to MDM. Okay, that's the one we said before. It's probably C1 algorithm, now it becomes X1. Number 5, usage transaction is created in MDM and the trigger consumption calculation based on the usage rules. Number 6, when usage transaction completes calculation, it moves to sent status, and usage request status move to the bill determinant received status. Okay, before that, usage request is in the waiting bill determinant status. And number 7, once MDM response is received, usage request move to bill determinant processed status, and her algorithm triggers, generating, freezing, and complete bill at this stage. And the calculate bill segment algorithm is triggered, which is in the generating part of this of this process. Okay. Now, this is pretty much end-to-end process. We could be referencing a lot of the process we have not talked before. For example, how the usage actually works, how the rate is applied. but at least from here we would know how the usage process is how it's triggered, what data we actually get back from MDM, how CCMB actually treat them, etc. Okay, last we look at the entity diagram. This is pretty straightforward. Build segment, usage transaction. Now, one thing we need to be aware of is we said we will have when the build segment is generating error, we don't have all the we won't have all the information, for example, service quantity, calculi, header, etc. Because at that point, usage request is not usage is not calculated, and then the usage will be calculated, will be created, send the request information over with this scalar and interval request details together with date break, for example. On MDM side, usage transaction is created, generated with all the details, for example, the usage period, usage scalar details, usage period, service quantity, and they will be sent back to the usage. And what the by that time remember the algorithm for calculate build segment is now triggered. It's copying the information from the usage request response to various objects, various tables like build segment calculation header. No, so first of all, the build segment audit reads for the readings, build segment service quantity based on service quantity, and then apply the rate. At the point of applying the rate, it calculates the build segment headers, calculation headers, etc. And this is probably the quite detailed process in between. I think when we get to how the rate actually works, at least we could be going to one of the example of how the end-to-end. I'll try to put down an end-to-end detailed steps of, let's say, one very particular example of scalar rate calculation generating a monthly bill, how that works. Okay, that's everything. Thank you very much and hope you like the video. See you next time.